Obviously, a lot of people are talking about, and we have spent many, many hours talking about what's going on with the postseason, the Cavs, LeBron James, and no better person to have on than Chris Broussard, Fox NBA analyst for FS1, working. You see him on shows like Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, and The Herd with Colin Cowherd right before Stan and I take the air. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. Let me ask you the question that you've probably been asked 12 million times since the end of the season, even before the end of the season. Any read, any feeling, Chris, on where LeBron James may end up?
Well, look, nobody knows, and anybody who tells you they know is guessing. Now, they might be an educated guess, but nobody knows for sure. LeBron James is going to make this decision himself. Now, he will obviously consult his family. He'll consult his agent, Rich Paul, and his business manager, Maverick Carter. But ultimately, regardless of their opinions, he is going to do what he wants to do. So nobody knows. But my belief, my gut feeling, if you made me pick one team that I had to say I think he's going here, I would say the Los Angeles Lakers, and here's why. Because LeBron said after his last game of the finals that, obviously with family issues now, with your son's getting older, one of them's about to enter the 8th grade, I believe. He probably wants to move somewhere where he can settle down for the next few years or foreseeable future. But with family consideration, I think the Lakers present the best combination of family considerations. And then he also said he wants to remain in championship mode. So he still wants to win and try to win championships. So I think potentially, the Lakers present the best opportunity to do that in both cases, because he's not going there by himself. But he could easily go there with a Paul George, maybe a Chris Paul. Maybe the Lakers swing a trade for a Kawhi Leonard or somebody else. So likely if he goes there, he'll go there with another star, and then you got a team that can contend in the Western Conference. And, they live out in L.A. in the summer. They got 2 homes out there. His wife and kids must be somewhat comfortable being in L.A. So that's what leads me to believe it's the Lakers. I think there are other better basketball situations. I think Boston potentially. I think Philadelphia potentially. Just straight basketball, I think San Antonio could be great. But when you look at both situations, family, winning, I think the Lakers present the best opportunity. Cleveland, obviously, family-wise would be great, but they don't have much roster flexibility. If you brought them back as they are right now, I don't think they win the Eastern Conference. And so I think that's the deterrent, not to mention his strained relationship with owner Dan Gilbert, that could end up getting him out of Cleveland.
So, Chris, explain to me how we've gotten here with LeBron, because for any other star that's coming up on free agency, the expectation is that they'd be going back because they can make the most money at the team they play with. But for some reason, every time it comes up with LeBron James, they never talk about him staying. It's always him going somewhere else. And he has never once come out and said that he's planning on leaving.
Well, it's interesting because both times when he left Cleveland the first time, I think most people expected him to stay. When he left Miami and went back to Cleveland, most people expected him to stay. So, and they've been obviously wrong twice.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of why. It's also the fact that LeBron, everybody knows it's about winning with him. And the reason that is because he's the only one in the GOAT conversation. If Kevin Durant doesn't win some championships now, or Steph Curry or any other player in the league, their legacy does not take the hit or even get the bump that LeBron's does. Like LeBron's, if he wins more titles, then he could become the GOAT in many people's eyes. If he doesn't win more titles, then he may never become the GOAT in people's eyes. Kevin Durant's never in that conversation. No matter how many titles Kevin Durant's win, nobody's going to put him ahead of Michael Jordan, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, whoever. No, their legacy is not solely tied to how many championships they win. because while it could improve their legacy, it's never going to put them above Michael Jordan, which potentially could happen with LeBron James. So I think that's why, it's such a big deal. And then, look, let's face it, LeBron brings a lot of it on himself. I'm not saying that negatively, but he signs these 1- and 2-year deals.
Right.
Even his first deal with Cleveland when he was there the first time, instead of signing for the 5 years he could have, he signed for 3. So he always wants to keep his options open. And whenever you have somebody that's always like, hey, I'm not committing, I'm non-committal because I want to keep my options open, then naturally people are going to think, well, a great option, he might leave because he's keeping his options open.
Chris, where did this all change? And maybe my memory as a young basketball fans in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s is failing me. But I don't remember so much conversation about needing to have a title to validate yourself. Like, I don't think any less of Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton as a player because they didn't win championships. But now it seems like it's like, as I said to Stan, it's like a scarlet letter. If you don't have a championship, well, you're not a great player. Did 2010, the decision change it? Did it happen before that? How? And am I wrong? It doesn't seem like it was like that before in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
I think that in the 80s is when it really began to start to change. Like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were so much about winning, right? That's what their legacies were tied to. They're winning, and obviously they were great individual players, but it was about winning with them. And I think they began to change it. Now, I will say this, Dr. J, remember, he kept getting to the finals in 77, in 80, and he lost. And then he got Moses Malone, and finally he won the championship. So there was some talk that Dr. J hasn't gotten over the hump, but it never was the level of, oh, he's not an all-time great player, anything like that. So I think it began to change with Magic and Larry being so much about winning and that being the number one thing. Remember, Larry Bird never led the league in scoring. Magic Johnson obviously never led the league in scoring. They weren't really about their individual numbers as great as they were. They focused on winning. So then comes along Michael Jordan, and he won at such an unprecedented rate. Bill Russell obviously won 11. But since him and Russell didn't have the individual numbers that Jordan did, Jordan just won so much, 3 and then retired and then 3 more, that he set another standard that everybody after him now is judged by. Jerry West, who is obviously an all-time great player, is the logo. Jerry West's nickname is what? Mr. Clutch.
Yes.
There is no way a player today who lost 8 of 9 finals will be called Mr. Clutch. Now, I'm not saying that as a slight on Jerry West, but I'm just saying that's how the perceptions have now changed. You would be viewed as the opposite, of Mr. Clutch. And Jordan changed that standard. And so now, LeBron James, maybe as unfairly as it is being compared to that standard, and other players to a lesser degree. But LeBron the most, because he's the only one we've ever seen who could compare to Michael Jordan individually.
So, Chris, are you sure it's just not nostalgia about the shoes that keeps Mike at the top? Because it seems like people forgot that he got swept in the first round by Bird and barely sniffed the finals for his first 6 years.
But nobody cares about the early round. All people care about are the finals. But I get what you're saying, but here's the thing. Michael Jordan had every box is checked off for Michael Jordan. Individual dominance. Led the league in scoring 10 straight years. Led the league in steals 3 times. LeBron James has only led the league in one category 1 time, scoring 1. So Jordan had more individual dominance, and then obviously even won more MVPs, 5-4. Then team dominance, of course. 6 rings, 6 for 6 to 3 for 9. So Jordan, and as much as LeBron locked down the Eastern Conference and nobody is able to break through and win in the East, Jordan did that with the whole league. nobody else was going to win when Jordan was on top and once he started winning. Then Jordan changed conventional wisdom. Nobody thought when he came into the league that you could build a dynasty around a shooting guard.
Yep.
He changed that. Nobody thought you could lead the league in scoring and win titles. As I said, Bird never did it. The Showtime Lakers never had the leading scorer in the league. When Philadelphia won it, they didn't have the leading scorer in the league. Like that, it was Wilt Chamberlain. As much as he scored, the 2 years he won titles, they were the lowest scoring years of his career to that point. Like his first title was his 11th year. He averaged 24. That was the lowest to that point. His next title, he averaged 14, and that was the lowest at that point. So Jordan changed all of these things. And if you look at Jordan's game, tell me a weakness. No weakness.
Right.
Now, LeBron doesn't really have any weaknesses either. I mean, you could nitpick and say free throw shooting, but even that, he's not a terrible free throw shooter. He's, 74,
But Chris, Jordan used to punch his teammates.
I mean, hey, everybody's got – he's not the only one to do that.
No,
you clear – look, I've got LeBron as number 2, but I'm just showing you it's not just, to say, well, Jordan got 6 rings, that's it. That's the simplistic argument. That's not what I base my judgment on.
Hey,
it's a lot of other stuff.
Chris, real quick before I let you go, obviously everybody in Columbus and Cleveland is hoping for the best with the LeBron thing. I agree with you that I don't think it's going that way. If I asked you a percentage chance that LeBron stays in Cleveland, what would you say?
Man. I would say between 5 and 10%.
Chris, you're breaking our hearts here, buddy. You're breaking our hearts. You're born in Ohio. Come on, Chris.
I preface this by saying I don't know. Nobody knows for sure.
Right.
But
the Cavs
the thing is, look, if family if it's just about family, then I would up that percentage. But when you bring in winning, if LeBron James' number one priority is still winning championships, and as he's always said, chasing that ghost in Chicago, then I almost think he has to leave.
Yeah.
Even if he wants to stay, because they don't have the flexibility. Nobody, free agents for the most part aren't going to go there. Not that they have the money. And it's just, how are you going to improve?
Yep. Exactly.
So, and he's not – look, it would be one thing – he's obviously going to be in his 16th season. If he were really declining, like, Dr. J's last couple of years, he did the tour. Kareem still was winning when he left L.A., but, a lot of times you see the player do the tour. Michael Jordan in Washington, even Kobe in L.A., they had declined so much that nobody was thinking championships and that they didn't win it. It was no big deal. But LeBron still appears to be in his prime.
Yep.
I mean, he may have had his best season ever. So for him, he actually still should be in championship mode rather than thinking, you know what, let me just close out my career, play, have fun, be happy. I would love to see him stay, but I just don't think it's in the cards.
Yep, I'm with you. Chris, we follow you for a long time, all the way back to Ohio and everything. We really appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.